Situation that feminists belittling other women.
Hello, everybody. How we doing? Woo! Got 3 weeks left in the semester. And 1 million papers to write. Yeah. All right, well, don't worry, we're not gonna think about that. Welcome to a celebration of literature and living writers. I'm Megan Marshall. I'm the director of the Hugh C. Hyde Living Writers series. And tonight we are celebrating National Poetry Month. With an amazing woman who is revered not only for the power and beauty of her craft, but also for her indelible contributions to our literary landscape. But before I introduce her officially, I do want to thank the folks who have helped to make this series possible, and that includes all of our friends from Love Library, my co-conspirator, Margaret Tomlin, also Danya Muka-Hall, Laurel Bliss, and Rebecca Williamson. I also want to thank the Department of English and Comparative Literature and the MFA program in creative writing for their continued support of this series, as well as Michael Ramirez and the representatives from Aztec Shops who are holding it down and selling books over there in the corner. Yes, we do have books for sale, so check them out, grab one, make sure you pay for it, come up and get it signed before you go. Lastly, I'm humbled to acknowledge the space that we are privileged to share this evening. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. They have nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations. And as members of the SDSU community, we acknowledge and celebrate this legacy. Lastly, a final reminder, please silence your cell phone if you have not already done so, and know that the event is being recorded, but don't worry, all you see is this right here. All right, it is my great pleasure to introduce our featured poet. Lynne Thompson is the author of 4 collections of poetry: Beg No Pardon, which is winner of the Perugia Press Prize and the Great Lakes Colleges Association's New Writers Award, Start with a Small Guitar, Fretwork, which is a winner of the 2019 Marsh Hawk Poetry Prize, selected by Jane Hirschfield, and Blue on a Blue Palette, published last year by Boa Editions. She served as the 2021-22 Poet Laureate for the City of Los Angeles and received a Poet Laureate Fellowship from the Academy of American Poets. A Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee, Thompson is the recipient of multiple awards, including the George Drury Smith Award for Outstanding Achievement in Poetry, an Individual Artist Fellowship from the City of Los Angeles, and she was a representative of LA to the Poetic Games of the Paris 2024 Cultural Olympiad. She currently serves on the boards of Poetry Foundation, the Los Angeles Review of Books, and Cavacanum, for which she was recently elected board president. Thompson's additional work can be found or is forthcoming in the literary journals Best American Poetry 2020, Kenyon Review, Gulf Coast, as well as the anthology Dear Yusuf, Essays, Letters, and Poems for and about one Mr. Komunyakaa, among others. When reading and then continuously rereading Thompson's most recent collection, Blue on a Blue Palette, I'm reminded of a few lines from the poet Muriel Rukeyser. What would happen if one woman told the truth about her life? The world would split open. The speakers in this dazzling collection do just this, speak truth to power. I want to cry out my sorrow, this devastating fire. Say history, claim, say wild. Through a brilliant distillation of form, both ancient and invented, and sharp imagery and narrative, Thompson braids these truths to capture our multitudes, to acknowledge inequity and violence, but also to celebrate the human collective. Praise for the inhale, the X, little heave of chest, praise this too short life. And part of National Poetry Month is celebrating those who have worked to spread the joy of poetry, to turn ears toward its powerful music, and to counter those pesky naysayers who seem to emerge every couple years and proclaim its death. And Lynne is one of those beloveds, so we are honored to have her here with us tonight. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Lynne Thompson.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I told Professor Marshall that I've been trying to get in this series for years. So finally, it has paid off. Happy Poetry Month to you all. And it just happens to be the 1-year anniversary of this book. So it's perfect to be here reading with all of you tonight. I know you thought that little trembler on Monday was gonna keep me away. I don't think so. Okay, I wanna make sure that I am respectful of time. We talked about that earlier today. So do that. All right, so I know that some of you have been assigned to read Blue on a Blue palette, but you're gonna be my guinea pigs tonight. I'm gonna try something that I haven't tried before because I haven't had this project before, which is I'm working on a new and selected collection of poems. Very much in the early stages, but all that means is it will have poems from each of the first, actually 5 books. I forgot I had an ebook. That counts, right?
Yeah.
I actually have 5 books. And then some new poems. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read a little bit from each book, and then I'll read more from Blue on a Blue palette, and then I'll close, if time permits, with some new poems. Okay, so first book, beg no pardon, didn't know what I was doing, but somehow it worked. And this was a book, first books often have a lot of autobiographical information because that's what you know, right? That's what you feel most comfortable writing about, how you've lived your life, what your family is like, your neighborhood, your school. So, oh, and let me apologize. I don't have the cold any longer, but the sexy voice is still here. I may need a water break periodically. But this is the first poem that I wrote when I thought, maybe I can be really a real poet. Even though my brother said, don't you have a novel in you? How I learned where we come, oh, let me back up. My parents are immigrants from the Caribbean, so that will help make sense with this poem. How I learned where we come from. When she wants him for the late meal, she calls, supper soon, Kingstown man, curried goat, sticky wicket. And he responds, testy, not yet ready, Beckway woman, Anglican church, basket with no handles. We children, we laugh, head for the hills and the tall, sweet grasses. Listen for the lilt of frangipani tanty. She call, come in now, pigeon peas, mangoes, poor man's orchids. Then we run for true, and supper is all cassava root, callaloo, very little sugar cane. And we're in it all at once. Choir song above Mount Pleasant, Port Elizabeth, harp of Paget Farm, till father, he say no, defends his slipped-on wishes for Soufrere, Sans-Souci, Walaliboo Bay, and so on into the evening. Calypso and steel drums, a little Rasta and Bob Marley for us young'uns, until finally we are no longer black ironwood, wood that will not float. I think, you don't realize as a child that your parents have an accent. But as you get older and you hear other people talking, you think, why are my parents talking so funny? They have an accent. So I was trying to capture that. This one, the unworshipped woman. Nothing beat her, break her down, or wreak so the way she do. Nothing got her unzipped mind, her fly paper memory. She a riverbed will be for a dog's millennium. She gone lost to her unborns. She pale smoke, shadow in the distance. She a train whistler's whistle, this unworshipped, this woman. She come like salt lick. She go down like a drowning man hollering for one last. Her story hung like seaweed. She come in, she go out. like unworshipped women supposed to. Knees bloody, knuckles got somebody's jawbone jammed on. Hair coiled with September twilight, corkscrewed so tight, even owls won't hoot. Until she passed by them, longing on long legs, lips the color of peril, bittersweet, folded round a hollow in her twisted back. But her one good eye, it flash. I remember writing that poem. I was very depressed, and by the end I felt a lot better. This poem is based on a form, and we're going to talk a lot about form tonight. I used to hate it, now I seem to write it all the time. This form is called a glossa. If you have a question about it, we can talk about it at the end. I have broken the rules here, but I saw another poet break the rules, so I followed her. It has an epigraph by the Nigerian poet Chris Abani. To the Igbo, which is a native group in Africa, to the Igbo, everything is family. Everything is connected, grandmother explained. Like the weave of this raffia hat, we intertwine. See, this is the world to the Igbo. Raffia. To the Igbo, everything is family, everything, be it small or grand. Whether you look like I do or look otherwise, whether you can sing or have no voice at all, in all of nature, moonfish, elephant tusks, the silkworm and its kin, no essential distinctions can be made. Those who discriminate bring dishonor to our house, perpetuate the shame we never want to admit. When singled out, we wilt needlessly. Relatively speaking, everyone is connected, grandmother explained. We bleed the blood of both Aborigine and Inca. Our imagination doesn't strain under ice plains or inside the heat of the Gobi or any other desert at the thought we all advance, slow as turtles, but we advance as one. And those who cannot must be saved like grains of rice fallen from the rice pot. When we refuse, we're doomed to sever the natural connection that makes us humane and proves that, like the weave of this raffia hat, we intertwine. The lock of your blonde hair braided with my dark lock. Your breathing identical to mine. Where is there a line separating the clouds showering our cities? Even the caesura between twilight and nightshade can't be assigned with precision. All of history is a sign that we learn and fail again at the very same rate. That I hold the tether and decide each bend in the path your sheep will take. Don't you see? This is the world to the Igbo. To think otherwise is to dwell in double doubt. To live otherwise is to live where there is no point in leaving your tent. This is not difficult. This won't fill your basket with cola nut. This is a story to be read by us all every day. We all have a grandmother who was confirmed it, so you cannot say it isn't so. Some young Igbo from a tribe near your village are awaiting your call. Their breath is indistinguishable from yours. Okay, so that's Beg No Pardon. So that came out in 2007. And here's a lesson I want to share. Don't rush that second book. I did, and left half the poems out of it that should have been in it because I was so anxious to have another book. Don't forget me if I don't have another book. All right, well, I got punished for that. This book, Start with a Small Guitar, is the second book, came out in 2013, I think, 6 years later, so I mean, that's not so bad. And my poet friend Candace calls this my love, no love book. Mostly no love, but anyhow. This one was when I was frustrated with a smartphone. The new eroticism. Because the 21st century has ditched that old school road to romance, you have found a new way to seduce me. Rather than stroke the honey spot where my neck succumbs to a shoulder that could wander you, you stroke keys on some small black widget held in your palm until your want of me glows green on the screen, takes several minutes to reach me with its shagong tune, and then, with no one near me knowing why, causes my cheeks to redden. Gone the parchment papers with love sop writ in peacock blue. Gone the 2 a.m. whispers under cover of an inexhaustible dark, only a telephone wire between us. And because the time is now, and we can never go back, and because I want you to inhale deeply, deeply, then whistle, I press fingers to my own widget's keys. Enter, enter, enter. And you gotta get into it, right? Don't have all the others. Okay, this is a fun poem, but you won't know because you're not seeing it. But anyway, I wrote it flush to the left on one side and flush to the right on the other side. It's a mirror poem, allegedly, because I saw someone else do it. But my mirror poem is imperfect, so it's a cracked mirror poem. And you'll hear why. But anyway, I am a woman. He knows that. Knows it the same way he knows no matter how hard he tries to define himself as spark plug or whiskey neat, I will come back in the late night, as I always do lately, to prove myself more than otherworldly, to prove that whether he tosses "you can't hold me" or cow patties in my path, I will grind all of it into the mute earth that has birthed him. Knowing doesn't make it any better. Doesn't stop the veins in his body from madly twisting the way 100 spiders might twist upon themselves in a mirrored, haunted house. He knows about haunted, about the axis in constant rotation, the inconvenience. No matter how hard he tries, the vision of my mouth and aspect remains. My mourning and my survival. My mourning and my survival. The vision of my mouth and aspect remains, no matter how hard I try, despite the inconvenience, the axis in constant rotation. I know about haunted as in mirrored haunted houses twisting upon themselves, madly twisting, the way 100 spiders might. The veins in my body knowing doesn't make it any better. Into the mute earth that has birthed me, I grind all of it, put "you can't hold me" and cow patties in the path wherever he tosses himself, to prove myself more than otherworldly, always and lately, in the late night, when I come back to define him as spark plug or whiskey neat, no matter how hard he tries. It's that way. I know that. So the fun of this poem is it's basically written when you wrote the first half, right? So you can have a long poem and just flip it around. I love that idea. All right. And don't be afraid to laugh in your poems and to laugh at yourself. People like that. Makes them feel better. Optimist's Requiem. Foolish fool, fool-proof fool, queen of foolhardy fools. fool for the long foolish haul, although mama didn't raise no fool, isn't part of my lexicon, and having a lexicon is one reason I'm such a fool. I've been fooled 59 times and never fooled a single soul. I've been a fast car fool, a fool for fool's gold, an American fool, and I've volunteered everywhere that needs one. Seems I'm not interested in anything else. I think I want fool etched on my forehead. Was a time when being a fool was a slip I could have slipped out of, but that was 40 slips ago. Now fool is tattooed on my tattoos as I sit at the table eating beans and more beans, a farting fool. That's me. I won't think of desire or anything that might turn me optimistic. It's not going to happen. I'll forget how buttons button, get the cancer and die, and still be thinking, maybe. Did you see that? Did it look like love? So, I don't get to say farting in poems, so it's quite exciting when I figured that out. Okay, we're doing good. So I had forgotten, as I'm thinking about this new and selected poems and saying, okay, I have these 4 books and I can, then somebody said, Lynn, what about that ebook? Which I had completely forgotten about. So for those of you who are looking for alternate ways of publication, because publication is challenging, there are very few companies, relatively speaking, that like to publish poems. You can also publish yourself. I did mine on Amazon, but I am sure that there are other platforms where you can do this as well. It was a very interesting process to figure out how do you do it? How do you make the pages come out so they're not upside down and all of that sort of stuff. But it can be done, and I have the very good news to report. I just did my taxes and I made a whopping $19 off of my ebook. I'm very excited about it. Very excited. You can buy them if you want. If you go on and put in my name, they're $1. So, this was not a money-making proposition. In fact, my tax preparer said that my poetry life was not a good model for sustainability. So the ebook is called Jezebels on the Loose. I just like the idea of Jezebels. And I'll read a couple of poems from there. Every paradox isn't a love poem. I am a woman, and as you know, riddle this. One garrulous bird sits on my balcony, smells the smoke, and isn't a bird, but a river or a valley. Neither a beginning nor an end. These moments, willow or windmill, can crush love, I promise. And this was a day I think I was feeling particularly sassy, which is most days. On a rose velvet settee singing, the goddess of watch me dress you in mourning will have to catch me first. She'll have to shave her legs before she ties her muffler on me. Even so, she'll have to make me laugh first. And no one gets to undress me unless it's vice versa and camellias. To the gods of, I'm the one who knows what's good for you and everything else is an old love letter, tell your sisters, I am not going to have it. I'm going to have a rose velvet settee, a ruthless parasol. I'm going to make every day Saturday night and a black chemise. Morning won't work unless it's the morning before the morning when everything ends, and I'm not sticking around for all that. I'll be 90 miles per hour on the highway and out of sight with a torch song in the air. Take another little piece of my heart, baby. That's Janis Joplin. For those of you who don't know Janis Joplin, go ahead and listen to her immediately. Okay, so we're through 2 books. So Fretwork was a book, I am an adoptee and was lucky enough to meet my birth family. But it did cause a little commotion with folks, I gotta say. Wasn't a movie of the week, it wasn't over in 2 hours, but it's been an interesting journey. And I wanted to put both sides of my family, my heritage, in one book. So that's one of the things that Fretwork was attempting to do. So I'm going to read a little out of order. I want to read the 2 books I wrote for my birth mother, Beverly. While she was out stealing, I slept in Beverly's womb, but it was dark, and I did not go far. She smelled the way the Taj Mahal smells by moonlight. Minutes went by on tiptoe, with their fingers to their lips. Then her hands dropped and jerked at something, and the robe she was wearing came open. But it was dark, and I did not go far. She was thinking, and it was clear, even on short acquaintance, thinking was always going to be a bother to her. Minutes went by on tiptoe, with their fingers to their lips. From 30 feet away, she looked like a lot of class, enough woman to make a priest discard his vestments. But it was dark, and I did not go far. She smiled a smile I felt in my hip pocket. She made me a pawn to her indifference then, but it was dark, and I did not go far. Minutes went by on tiptoe, with their fingers to their lips. Right, so the voice is coming back. Give me a second. How's everybody doing? That's good?
Good.
Don't have to clap necessarily. I just want to make sure you're not like, okay, when is this going to be done? And then I want to skip to the back. So without going into all the gory details, it was a difficult circumstance with my birth mother. And I did not see her before she died. And after she died, I wrote this for her. Chord for Beverly. 1. She didn't ask for me when she saw all of it ending, so I don't know how she went out. Whether she wept or sang, Precious Lord, or I wish I knew. She didn't ask for me. Perhaps she asked for nothing, nothing being what she chose once. I don't know how she went out, whether dreaming of my father or of the revulsion she had for her own. She didn't ask for me. She could have left one suggestion. She didn't, and maybe she died hard. Whether dreaming of me or furious, she was at the end of dreaming and left with one last choice, not to ask. I don't know how she went out. And 2, I must tell you this. I don't know, I did not go to her before her breathing became shallow, so she never knew what I've become. That, as another's daughter, I did long, still dressed in apologies and alibis, I did not go to her. My feet stuck in the sludge of my other mother's, don't do this to me. She never knew what I've become. She never knew, and no one's to blame. Why can't every choice be just a choice? Because I didn't go to her, and why not continually, and even then I didn't. What is that? Even I don't know if I've become a liar, always fire in the grate, or someone else's reason to be grateful, but that's not good enough. I did not go to her. Anyone can see what I've become. So I wrote that the way I did because my initial thought was anger that she didn't ask for me, but then I realized, you know what? You're an adult. You didn't ask for her either. So I couldn't write it about her without recognizing my own culpability, right? And this last one I'm going to read from Fretwork. Do people know what the Green Book is? Maybe you saw the movie, some of you know. So there was a book called the Negro Traveler's Green Book. And it was printed from roughly 1936 to 1966. And it was a book that told what were called then Negroes, African Americans, places they could travel to if they were driving across the country, hotels where they'd be welcomed, restaurants where they could eat, gas stations where they could get gas, right? Because they never could be quite sure, is this a friendly place or not? My dad drove from Chicago to Los Angeles before that book was published. And I always can imagine the things he might have faced in that journey. The only thing you need to know about this poem is the second section is lifted from the actual Green Book. In 1930, Daddy drove to California without benefit of the Negro Traveler's Green Book. 1. Daddy left Chicago with Mr. Rodriguez instead of his wife, planning to travel Route 66, having little to less money and eager to see the Pacific. When he wanted to sleep, it would have helped if he had known Mrs. Mosby's tourist home, 1614 Jackson, Springfield, welcomed weary Negroes. If he needed gas in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Swindoll's would have been the station for his kind. For a bite to eat in Amarillo, he would have been given a tip. Try Tom's Place, New Harlem, or Blue Bonnet, and so on across the country. He had no guide, had only the risk of a rope in Oklahoma City or Santa Fe, New Mexico. Because they were driving to California, the Golden State, maybe they didn't know many towns within its borders were sundowners, and there ain't no niggers allowed was the policy. They were headed to the City of Angels, but in others, Burbank, Compton, Culver City, Dutch Flat, Gold Run, Downey, Folsom, Linwood, Inglewood, Orange, Palmdale, and the San Fernando Valley, they could not eat or sleep. Yet to make the news, Siskiyou County's last lynching, 1933. 2. With the introduction of this travel guide in 1936, it has been our idea to give the Negro traveler information that will keep him from running into difficulties and embarrassments, and to make his trip more enjoyable. There will be a day, despite the introduction of this travel guide, sometime in the near future, when it will not have to be published. This is when there will be an end to days of difficulties and embarrassments, when we as a race will have equal opportunities and privileges in these United States. We trust, sometime in the near future, there will be the great day when we'll be able to suspend publication, for then we'll be able to go wherever we please. When we as a race will have equal opportunities and no embarrassments. But until that day comes, we will continue to distribute this information, this travel guide Mr. Green introduced in 1936, critical directions that kept Negroes from running. 3. It was 1966 before the Green Book printed its last. Okay, one book to go. How are we doing for time? Okay. I'm not going to read as much as all these tags would make you think, so don't get nervous. Don't get nervous, don't get nervous. Okay. This one I got from a book written by a Dutch woman who, while doing research in a library in Amsterdam, came across the records of a revolt of enslaved people in a place called Berbice, what we now know as Guyana in South America. And it's a fairly thick book, very interesting book. And I found one sentence about women. And so I decided to give them a voice. A Rage on Berbice, 1763. Before I was north and south of a new country, I was divided from. I was a tactic. I was a slave trading port. Before I was remade as Amerindian, I was sugar as the main crop. Before I was overworked and underfed, I was selected for immediate punishment, persuaded to remain a wooden gutter for collecting rainwater, ruled by terror and customary understandings before I was replenished by the arrival of 2 more ships. Before I was left for dead by frightened Europeans was before I was something black at the bottom of a buyer's cup. Before I was high upriver in the jungle, I was silver and gold and a bounty paid to soldiers. Prepared fields farther inland, the quarters where we captives slept. I was the fort burned and abandoned before I joined the Arawaks and squatted with a knife in my hand. Before I was traumatized woman hoping to make my way, I was the turning of the tide. Before I was awakened in the middle of the night, I was bloodshed on the captain's bedclothes. Before I escaped the cooking pot full of Negro flesh, before I declined to implicate the others, before I was a witness to the executions of the women rebels and sentenced to vigilante injustice, I was a daughter who spelled you my name phonetically. I was woman with child whose children's children have lived to tell you this. So now those women have a voice. One sentence. Wasn't happy about it. Okay, if you live in Los Angeles, you must write about the freeways. It's just a rule. And so there it goes. And actually, this is a true story. Red Jasper. Swift Coronas and vintage Mercedes-Benz's serenade. Pistons strumming pistons as they cruise Highway 134. Radios blare the twin talk of the born again and arena football. James, the Godfather, croons, "This is a man's world" for the lady boomers who still believe it as they veer south onto the 5, skirt Chavez Ravine and every displaced Ruiz, Ramos, and Rodriguez, built into fields of faux diamonds for all the boys who pray to play past summer. Every driver slows for the cops and 18-wheelers loops the river Los Angeles with its confessions buried in concrete under a stubborn scent of smog, last bloom of jacarandas, and can't squeeze a drop of rain until tomorrow. Some of us turn north onto the 110 and head for our weekend, so there's simply no reason for all this horsepower to come to such a hard stop just south of the Arroyo Seco, except that yesterday, minutes fell back into the groove they came from, and today, rush hour finds itself shrouded in a dark so black, all we can see in the early November sky is a hunter's moon, that orange-red gem, that highwaymen gathering up our lost seasons. This was the biggest moon ever. Oh my God, really. And everybody was like, because it felt like it was right there. Dying now or whatever. This one I wrote because I am convinced that the American government's cruel separation of children and their parents are going to haunt us as a country in 20 years. Seeking paradise. Don't tell me how I came to be born by a river. Instead, won't you bring me honeysuckle and applause of Mexican marigolds? Tell me how Stardust bequeaths its anthems and will not die, so you can bring me a rebanado de cielo that stopped its weeping. Tell me Sam Cooke had it right singing "A change is gonna come." But do not tell me about a child who crossed the Rio Grande to taste US, but who's been lost to her mother, doesn't know when she will eat again. Don't you know this girl will remember and then, without warning, kill you as you sleep between your twisted sheets? I wish you would bring us jalapenos baked into sweet cornbread, and with it some green tomatoes, capers, a subtle casamadero. Won't you bring us memories of a dog, a ball, or all of Saturday to do what children want Saturdays to do? Why can't you be kind? Why won't you, in paradise, us? Okay, I got 10 minutes. Zip right along here. Might not read as much as I thought, but okay. I don't know about Juneteenth. We celebrated, I had mixed feelings. But when I went to Texas and saw how happy everybody was celebrating it, I thought, okay, why are we celebrating a holiday wherein enslaved people didn't know they were no longer enslaved for 2 years? Our ancestors enslaved once said Juneteenth would never be, oh say can you see? But then they said, my name is George died with your knee on my neck. My name is Brianna shot while asleep in my bed. My name is 9 worshipers at Emmanuel AME Church, and my name is quite young, like Trayvon, like Tamir. They said, my name is Homer Plessy and Lloyd Gaines. My name is Diane Nash and Merle Evers. My name is Tulsa and Rosewood and Devil's Punch Bowl Natchez. Is strange fruit and eyes turned toward Canada. My name is Taste of Gullah, of filet gumbo, is scar and rice seeds, is families torn and may I have permission? And they also said, my name has never been nigger boy or gal. My name is Henrietta Marie, alarm, rattler, and bones and bolts waiting to be found at the bottom of the sea. My name is Angola. My name is Senegambia. Then they said, in dawn's early light, we will celebrate and celebrate, however it is we choose to. Okay, maybe I'm not going to read you any new poems, but I'll finish with 3 poems from Blue. Boketo for Sandra Bland. People remember Sandra Bland? You need a quick reminder? Pulled over by a cop traveling to a new drive for not putting on her turn signal. Is taken to jail and commits suicide 3 days later? I think not. Boketo. I won't stop. Even if a cop appears from perdition in a place he has no reason to be, even if he slams me against the sidewalk or with the butt of his gun and tells me I am under arrest, but not why, then throws me into no one will ever find her here. Even if he drags me along the ground until my flesh becomes gravel road, then tosses me into the back seat of a black and white, then delivers me to a sergeant who orders a mugshot that will make me look wasted. I am not wasted. And even if, after days of being forgotten in a jail cell smelling of piss and vomit, my bladder full of fear, I am taken before someone who someone says has the right to judge me, who asks, how do you plead? I will concede that I am only guilty of practicing boketo, the Japanese art of gazing into the distance with no thought of anything specific while Black. One long one and one short one, and we're off to questions. This poem has an epigraph. I had read an article that said, well, you know, maybe African Americans won't be as numerous in America as they once were. And I said, well, I'm not having that. So I wrote this poem. The epigraph from W.E.B. Du Bois: would America have been America without her Negro people? Once we were rivers, but is this the last of us? Gone the mean barracoon, gone the deep, wide rivers of us. No more roosters or pickled pig's feet, no Aretha or respect. Is this the last of us? Are African less African and gone? Are Tap less Bojangles, Hines and gone? Gone the deep, wide rivers of us and gone too? Our faith and fidelity to the Betsy Ross stitch. And Martin, was he the last of us? And Malcolm, Harriet, Barbara Jordan, all gone. Who remains to pray for the deep, wide rivers of us? Gone our song and its shadow. Gone the tongue of the gullah. Gone the deep, wide rivers of us. Is this the last of us? You can't really believe that. You've been seeing the last of us for a long time come. Come first the Black women and their people, Amina of Zaria, Anna D'Souza Nzinga, Nandi. Then come the transatlantic traders sailing from Luanda, Malembo, Sierra Leone, landing Grenada, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, landing the Carolinas, Virginia, New York. Come then the Black men running, too many slave names like my great-great-great-grandfather George, Fred Douglass. This is not too old a story. See Emmett Till, Harry Moore, 4 dead girls in an Alabama church. Some say only a few bad rogues, but today's cops, just like yesterday's patty rollers, shot Stephon Clark, shot Danny Ray Thomas, shot Antoine Rose II, shot Deontay Arbor. All of them unarmed. And all of this in the same year of whose Lord? So we fight. We fight for the last of us, even fight each other, Ali Boumier. But then we hear the kora, the talking drum, the balafon and marimba, and Josephine Baker heard them, and Jacob Lawrence heard them, and Toni Morrison heard them, and Jesse Owens running heard the drums that turned the Arthur Ashe racket into a drum, the diplomacy of Ralph Bunche into a drum, the demand of Ida B. Wells into a drum. Like Basquiat's obnoxious liberals was a drum, like Harriet Powers quilting was a drum, like a LeBron James dunk is a drum, and didn't Father Curry preach in the Church of England like a drum those lords and ladies had never heard before? So they know, as you know, there will never be a last of us. C.E.G. the Justins of Tennessee. We come like rivers. And after cheering you up with that, let's just do something fun to close this out. Right? Canticle at twilight, floating like a feather, like a single grain in the sea, grateful despite being alive, craving grace as I crave evening, cradling rage as I cradle no vicar. I think I might just be a clock and juju power in a terrible century, a needle and the way to plunge it in, dancing through a meadow, away. Floating like singular rage, unlike 20 sheaves of feathers, like a vicar alive and dancing anyway. Craving this terrible century and every clock cradled in the sea. I think I'll always be the needle, Grateful for my grain and juju power and all the ways to plunge into it in this meadow just for an evening. Thank you.